Hello there. Thanks everyone who's joining in. Welcome to the Alumni Experience panel. We're going to give it a few minutes to allow everyone to join. So as we're waiting, if you'd like to put what country and city you're joining us from into the chat, that would be great. We'd love to hear where everyone's coming from. I'm personally joining from Chicago, Illinois in the US, but I know we probably have attendees from all over the place, so feel free to put that into the chat. And for those of you who are just joining, I was mentioning that we're going to get started in a few minutes to allow people to join. So if you'd like to put what country and city you're joining us from into the chat, we'd love to hear where everyone's coming from. And we'll get started in just a few minutes.
We have some Santiago, Chile, Netherlands, Amsterdam, Sydney, Australia, Atlanta, Georgia, that's where I'm from, UK, welcome everyone, another Georgia, London, awesome, welcome everyone.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. We'll just give it one more minute before we get started to allow people to join in a little bit late, but that's okay. And again, for those of you who've just joined, we'd love to know where you're coming from. So feel free to put your country and city that you're in into the chat. We'd love to hear more about where everybody's coming from as we kind of wait to get started. All right. Casablanca, Morocco, wonderful. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us. We can go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Alumni Experience panel. We have 5 wonderful panelists who are joining us today to talk about their study abroad experiences. Before we get to the panel, I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Bailey Kepford. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager at ISEP, and I will be one of your moderators for the panel today. And I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues, Grace and Cynthia. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them to introduce themselves.
Awesome, thank you, Bailey. Hi everyone, my name is Grace Clancey. I am the Student Services Officer for Northern and Central Europe. So for any of you that have questions that are interested in a program over there, please direct your questions my way. At the end of the presentation, we're going to provide you information for all of our student services officers so you know exactly who to contact regarding your questions. And now I will pass it over to Cynthia.
Thank you, Grace and Bailey. My name is Cynthia, and I am a program assistant at ISEP. So I specifically assist the student services officers and just the enrollment management team. And while you're on your program, I will be able to assist you with any matters concerning insurance or transcripts. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace and Cynthia. So we're so excited to have everyone join us today. I was just glancing at the chat to see where you're all coming from, and it's cool to see that we have people from all over the place, lots of Europe, lots of US. I saw a fellow Chicagoan in there. I hope you're staying warm. It's a cold one here in Chicago right now. So excited to hear from you all. We have students who have studied abroad all over the world joining us today, alumni of ISEP programs, and we do have questions prepared for them, but this is really an opportunity for you all to ask the questions that you have as well. So whether that be about how they arrived in their host country or how they made friends, classes they took, things like that, you can put those into the Q&A box and we will answer them as we are able. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to change the slide. Here's a few pictures of our panelists that you'll be hearing from today. And I'm going to pass it over to Grace to go ahead and talk a little bit more about ISEP before we start talking to the panelists.
Awesome, thank you, Bailey. As Bailey mentioned, I'm going to give a brief introduction on ISEP and our mission, and just a very short introduction on the application process. So who is ISEP? ISEP is a non-for-profit organization. Our mission is to make and provide life-changing study abroad experiences that are accessible and affordable for all students that are interested. Our ISEP programs are quite different than other programs as we focus on immersive and authentic experiences. Our goal is to break down these barriers and really insert you into the culture, to provide these exchanges where you're meeting not only people and students from your host community, but also from around the world, and really fostering these relationships and giving back to the host community that is providing this amazing experience for you. So at ISEP, our goal is really to foster this immersive and authentic experience. All right, so how does it work? At ISEP, we offer semester, full year, and summer programs. We have more than 300 universities in over 50 countries around the world. ISEP offers two types of programs, direct programs and exchange programs, that are quite different in their structuring. So for direct programs, you would pay a specific program fee that would be listed on the program pages. And within the listing on the program page, you'll see there are flexible housing and meal options. So please make sure when you are reviewing the direct program details, just to be aware of how the housing and meal would work for that specific program. Your placement is guaranteed in direct programs as long as you meet the academic requirements that are listed on the direct program page. ISEP Exchange, on the other hand, is the idea that you pay your home institution's tuition, housing, and meals. So our exchange programs, unlike our direct programs, are not guaranteed placement. We have this idea of chance of placement that ranks from most competitive to excellent chance of placement. So we highly encourage you when you're looking at the exchange pages to be aware of that program's chance of placement. And with that being said, when you make your application list, you can rank up to 10 sites, but we highly encourage you to list 3 to 5 sites that have good to excellent chance of placement in order for you to have a strong and competitive application. Okay, so in regards to health, safety, and well-being, all ISEP students receive comprehensive health insurance, 24/7 emergency services, as well as your ISEP student services officer. All of this information in regards to the on-site health facilities and support services will be made available on your ISEP dashboard and your health and safety information tab after your placement at your host university. In regards to housing, more information on housing will be provided after you are placed at your host university. But if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to your student services officer, whether it's before or after your placement. In regards to the ISEP Promise, the ISEP Promise is our risk-free travel advisory policy that ensures in the case of a program suspension on either your home university side or your host university, that you would be essentially facilitated to an alternate program, a deferred placement, or a full refund of your placement fee. So just to reiterate, the ISEP Promise is in the case that your program was to be suspended by either your home university or your host university. Okay, so just a quick little tidbit on how to apply, and we're going to have information at the end of the presentation today on when our next application workshop is, so you can have more information and more in depth into how to create an ISEP application. But the very short version is how to apply. We first recommend you create an account at isepstudyabroad.org/apply, which we can definitely drop in the chat box as well. We always advise you to get in touch with both your student services team as well as your study abroad coordinator at your home university in order for us to discern what program types would be good fits for you, as well as discern your academic goals and which programs would be the best fit for you overall. Your student services officer is here to assist you in the application process. So we highly encourage you, as I mentioned, we'll have our information at the end of the presentation to reach out for any and all questions, as well as reach out to your academic advisor at your home university in order to make sure that you are looking at universities that fit your academic best interests.
Thank you so much, Grace, for providing us with that information. So right now we are going to begin the panel presentation, and I first want to thank all of our panelists for agreeing to speak with you all today. They've so graciously offered their time, and we are excited to hear about their stories and experiences while abroad. So I'm first going to introduce the panelists. So our first panelist is Ana Chiara Docimo. She is a business major from the Universidad Católica del Sacro Cuore, and she participated in a program at Lake Forest College in Illinois, the United States. Our second panelist is Martina Zamet. She is a communications degree from Malta, and she studied in South Korea at Ewha Women's University. Our third panelist is Robin Schlikhaus, and she is a psychology major from the Netherlands and studied at San Jose State University. John is a former economics and management major from Italy, Universidad Católica del Sacro Cuore, and he studied abroad in Japan at Chukyo University. And our final panelist is Faith Makwana, and she is an international studies major from the US, and she studied at the University of Tartu in Estonia.
Thanks, Cynthia. So the first question that we have for our panelists is we would love them to share with us an anecdote or a story highlighting a pivotal moment that they had during their study abroad experience. So we're going to start with Ana Chiara. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and go ahead and share about your experience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Chiara, and I'd like to tell you a story about my experience. In particular, I'd like to talk about my experience in the cheerleading club. I decided to join the cheerleading club because I had never done that before. So it was actually my first time joining a club like that because this is not really popular in my country, and this gives me the chance to meet a lot of people. And in particular, as you can see in the picture on the left, we were around 12 or sometimes even 15 girls and boys, and I was the only ISEP student joining this club, so this gave me the chance to meet with locals and be actually a part of this great culture, because I believe that sport is a part of the American school culture. And so Americans are really committed to sport. And so this club gave me also the chance to discover a new sport that is an American football. I've never watched a football game before, so this gave me the opportunity to learn more about this sport. And moreover, it also gave me the chance to connect with local people, as I said. So I met a lot of friends, and we had also parties, and we spent a lot of time together. So I actually consider them as a family today. And I am, of course, still in touch with them, and I hope to see them soon. And also this experience gave me the chance to meet, for example, football players, of course, and to spend time with all the teams. So I actually feel like I belong to a team as well. And so I really, if you had the chance to travel abroad, in particular in the United States, I really recommend you to join a club, and because this is the chance to make a lot of friends.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Ana Chiara. That's a really cool experience that you got to really immerse yourself in American culture by joining a cheerleading team. So that's really, really neat to hear. So again, I want to take this moment to reiterate that as you're hearing these stories from our panelists, feel free to ask any questions that you have, or if you'd like someone to elaborate on something they said, just go ahead and put that into the question and answer box, and we will ask those questions as we go along. So for the next story, I'd like to pass it over to Martina to share her anecdote.
Hi everyone, I'm Martina. I'm from Malta, and for my exchange I went to South Korea at Ewha Women's University. as you can see in the photos, in the middle photo, I was with my Iwa Peace buddy. It was a girl that was assigned to me to help me get used to Korean culture, because it was quite difficult at first, even not knowing the language. So that was really nice. I think one of my main highlights throughout the whole experience was the opportunity to visit the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. And personally, this was a major highlight because in like my younger years, I had studied about it at school, and I would have never dreamed of visiting it because of like financial barriers and cultural barriers. Like I would have never thought I'm gonna go visit South Korea just to see it. So when I was there on the exchange and I was with some other international students, like the topic came up and I was pretty like happy that like I was finally gonna get this opportunity. So that was a really major highlight. And it also made me more culturally aware, and I think that's the best part about going on an exchange like this. It made me more culturally aware that even what I had studied when I was younger, there were a lot more human details up close, and cultural nuances. So that was a very big part of like milestone for me in my trip. Also on the screen you can see me like fangirling over some Korean food. One of my it was quite a struggle to eat plant-based while I was there, so it was also an opportunity to explore Korean cuisine and find like vegetarian restaurants. And yeah, exploring Korean cuisine was very interesting, and I also took some of that cuisine, like cooking skills, back home. So I think all in all, it was a really great experience, like a very culturally mind-opening for sure. Yeah.
That's great. Did you have a favorite dish that you just like brought back to and crave all the time?
Yes. If anyone's watched Squid Games, there is a dish called tteokbokki. It's basically this like rice cake. It's in this spicy tomato sauce, but it's not tomato sauce. It's like chili paste. And it's really good. I really like it. You might have seen it featured in Squid Games.
I love Squid Games. That was such a great show. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. I saw there's one question about whether or not EWA is only for women. So it is a women's university, but any ISEP students, regardless of your gender, can apply to participate in the program. So just wanted to clarify that real quick before we go to Robin to share her stories.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, hi, my name is Robin and I went to SJSU in the fall semester last year. The pictures you see here are from the first big trip we took with the friends we made. I was in a house with, I think, 50 other people, a lot of them also internationals. And with, I think, 15 people, we went to LA in the beginning of September. And yeah, it was a great experience. Like I've always wanted to go to California. So my main goal was to travel as much as I could, which I definitely did. And this being the first big trip, yeah, it was great. And the first day we went there by a night bus. So we didn't really sleep that much. And then me and one friend decided to go to Warner Brothers studio, but neither of us had ever been to LA. So we had to take like public transportation and we had no idea how to get there. And one thing that really stood out for me was how kind people were. Like a couple of people, they noticed us struggling and they all just came up to us like, do you need any help? And they just, yeah, told us how to get there, which was really nice. Like that's not really something that happens that often in the Netherlands. People are more, yeah, they don't really do that out of themselves. Like if you ask, then it's okay. But I don't think I've ever had someone come up to me here to ask if they could help with directions. Yeah, that was really, really a great experience.
That's really nice to hear. It's great when you're traveling somewhere and there's locals that are willing to help you, because I know we all have those moments of just feeling like we're lost. And even with GPS and stuff, it's so hard to like sometimes know where to go in a new place. So that's great to hear that you found some helpful locals. All right, so next we're gonna go to John to share about his experience in Japan.
Okay, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to express my gratitude for the most amazing year of my life with the ISEP exchange program. So I'm a Turkish student. I was a Turkish student in Milan with a dream of experiencing the life of Japan and culture of Japan. So I was able to do an exchange to Nagoya, Chukyo University. There, I was able to do so much. I've experienced a ton of stuff. I had a lot of firsts. I went to snowboarding with my friends. In the pictures you can see, I went to a sumo match. And then on the Halloween, there was the world's biggest street open air party with more than 1 million participants, full of costumes, crazy stuff. And you can see like Tokyo Drift, there was like a drifting event, you know, iconic stuff. So everything was very unique to me. But there was this one experience that actually changed my perspective of life. So I have to tell you about the like a small information on the history of Turkey and Japan relationship before I start the story. So on 1889, the Ottoman Empire sent a ship to Japan with 607 military personnel carrying gifts to the Emperor of Japan. After delivering the gifts on the way back, unfortunately, there was a very big storm and the ship crashes and sinks at the coast of Kushimoto. Kushimoto is a small village, but at that night, in the middle of the storm, the villagers of Kushimoto risked their lives to save the crew of the ship without knowing who they are. And till this day, this story remains as the symbol of the initiation of friendship between the two countries. So I knew about this story. And when I was in Japan, I wanted to pay a visit to Kushimoto. And the trip was beautiful. The nature is amazing. Kushimoto itself is very amazing with unique geographical forms and then forests and the sea. Everything is amazing. And before I go, I was lucky enough to arrange a meeting with the mayor of the town. So when I entered the city hall, everybody greeted me in Turkish. Like all the Japanese staff speak a little bit of Turkish, which was very surprising because it's a very small village of Japan. And the whole interior was designed with Turkish relics and items. To see that they kept the story and protected the values of it for over 130 years was amazing. And the mayor was very nice. We talk about upcoming cultural events and relations. And then we went to see the actual place where the ship sank. There was a very nice museum and a monumental for the people who have lost their lives. And then there was a huge statue of the founder of Turkish Republic, the greatest Turk, Atatürk, which just made me cry because I was far away, thousands of kilometers, but it suddenly felt like home. And after that, they have invited me to an amazing dinner with 4 grandsons and granddaughters of the villagers that helped to save my Turkish ancestors 130 years ago. In this picture, on the left, you can see like 4 of the people are actually the grandson, granddaughter of the heroes. And they told me the stories that you can never find on the books. They actually told me that in the beginning, no one wanted to speak about the incident. They didn't want to tell the story because they just helped people in the sake of humanity. They didn't do it to you know, show off or to talk about it. So most of the stories are untold. And, you know, they told me stuff like the villagers removing their house doors to carry people from ocean back to the village so that they can cure them or the doctor can help them, and giving their food at the time that even the village didn't have enough for itself. So the way they kept the history living, and the way that they took care of me when I was there, it all gave me a new perspective to look at life. I'm sorry, maybe it was a little bit too long.
No, that was such a beautiful story. I mean, that's really an incredible experience. I don't know that we hear about a lot of alumni who get to meet a mayor and get to explore, you know, a story of their ancestors and meet
It
people
was very
that
special.
were heroes, you know, ancestors of
Mhm.
heroes. And I think that goes to show, and Martina's story, or I'm sorry, it was, I believe Robin who said that you had the locals who gave you directions. It's like, we hear these stories time and time again. And John, I think that was a great example of how when you study abroad and you travel internationally, you really see our shared humanity, whether it's something small like getting directions, or it's something bigger where you're meeting a mayor and you're being welcomed into the home of local people. It's really just a great opportunity to see we're not all so different after all, you know, like John, you said, you felt like home, even though you were
Exactly.
so far away. So I think that's a great example. That story was really incredible. So thank you for sharing, John.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So now I'm going to pass it over to Faith to share her story from her study abroad experience.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Faith. I went from the US to Estonia. And one of the really cool things that I got to do is I really got to experience, I would say, like the finer things in life. I went to a lot of ballets and theaters. And it was really cool, and lots of museums as well. I would say like here, because I'm based in Pennsylvania, the closest city to me is Philadelphia, and ticket prices for museums and shows are kind of on like the higher end, not really budget friendly for a university student. But in Estonia, it's, I feel, relatively budget friendly, and I was able to go to a lot of them, and I actually got to meet some really close friends that I'm still in contact with today. And we would go, I think we went maybe like twice every month I was there. So that was like 8 different shows and stuff. And it was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And the museums were so cool. Honestly, I think Tartu should rename its slogan and call itself the City of Museums instead of the City of Good Thoughts, because there's quite literally one on every street corner. And they have awesome student discounts as well, and sometimes admission is free. So if you're really into like culture, I would highly recommend checking out Estonia. It's a little out there, I know, but it's so much fun, and Tartu is just so safe and wonderful. And then the other thing I did that kind of put me out of my comfort zone was I saw this ad on Facebook, and then I heard about it through a friend. There is a local NGO, it's called International House of Tartu, and they host a Estonian culture program for foreigners that have come to Tartu, whether you're studying there, living there, working there, what have you. And they put together trips to different museums and different immersive experiences to get involved with the local culture and get to know a little bit of the history. Small talk culture is not really a thing in Eastern Europe, so it could be kind of hard to connect with locals, especially when, like, I think as an American, I'm kind of extroverted, even though I know I'm not. But for them, it's like, wow, she's super like friendly and like da da da. But in reality, I'm like kind of keep to myself. But it's all about perspective. So it was really interesting, and we actually got to go to this agriculture museum and get to learn about, like Estonia's start and stuff. And then we actually got to bake rye bread, which is one of the staple Estonian food, and it was really cool because we all got to like mix the dough and stuff like that and learn about the things. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I miss it, and yeah.
Thanks so much, Faith. I love to hear those stories. And that's really cool that there's so many museums. I didn't know that about Tartu. So that's cool that you got to experience that. Great. Well, I'm going to go back to our intro page so everyone can see again where these students studied and where their home university is as well. Before we get into the other questions that I have on my list, I wanted to go ahead and ask the group a question from the audience. So we had a question about, was blending in with people in South Korea hard due to the language barrier, or was it easy to make friends? And I'd like to kind of expand that question so that everyone can answer. I think a lot of you dealt with a language barrier. Actually, maybe all of you. I think everyone studied in a location where you didn't speak the native language. So anyone who wants to pipe in and talk about your experience trying to adapt to a different language and how you tried to make friends. I think actually the friends part of it, we have another question coming up, so I might leave that part out because we'll answer that later on. But if anyone who wants to unmute themselves from our panel who would like to talk about how you adapted to a different language while you were abroad, that would be great.
I can share about how I adapted to South Korea. In terms of the language barrier, I had downloaded a photo translator app, although I would very highly recommend learning just a little bit before you go, because like as a European, I can understand a bit of Italian and French. I can make sense of it, but when it's such a different language, it's quite important just to learn the basics. But regardless, like you will still manage to make sense of the place, and you start to get used to certain symbols for sure. So it takes a bit of time, that's for sure, but getting an app really helps. And in terms of integrating, I had a peace buddy, but I can talk about that later on in the friends section. Yeah.
Perfect. Anyone else want to share about your experience with language?
I can. When I applied to ISEP program, it was ISEP exchange. So I put down 3 different universities in Japan, and then I was accepted to Nagoya Chukyu University, and I was like, yay! But what is Nagoya? I never heard the city before. Nagoya is actually the 4th biggest city, but many people never heard of it because it's an industrial city. It's not a touristic place. That's why the local people are not used to foreigners. So for me, it was a bit of a game of survival. If I didn't speak Japanese, it was hard to eat. It was hard to make friends. I mean, you can make friends, but you cannot, have a deep friendship if they didn't speak English. So I had to learn, and the best way to do was to practice with my friends and locals. And it was a chance actually that they didn't speak English, so it was a good opportunity for me to learn the language.
And that's something that we really encourage here at ISEP is if you are going to a location that speaks a different language, definitely while you're there or even before you get there, I think trying to learn the language is important because it opens you up to have those deeper conversations with people than you might if you don't have that language background. And like John said, it's like sometimes it's a situation where you have to learn really quickly because you're needing it to go order at a restaurant or things like that. So studying abroad is a great time to really strengthen your language skills. I know I am also an ISEP alumni. I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning, but I studied in France and I thought I knew a good amount of French before I went there. And then I got there, was like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. But it really was a time to learn really quickly and get really proficient in the language. So if you are going somewhere, then I recommend taking a language course. For the most part, our ISEP programs do offer language courses that you can take. I think that was a another question that I just saw come through. So like if you're studying at, for example, John and Anna Korea's university in Milan, there's Italian classes that you can take. Italian is a second language. Or if you're going to places, oftentimes there's at least a beginner language class offered, if not a whole language and culture program where you can just focus on learning the language while you're there. So lots of different options. It just depends on what program you specifically select for language learning. And sometimes you don't have any language problems because you're studying, like if I were to study abroad in Canada, for example, it's like I'm from the US, so it's a different country, but same language. So it's not, you may not have a barrier, but it can be a really great thing to learn as well if you're going to a country where you don't speak the native language. Great. So now I'm going to ask Anna Chiara to answer a question. What was one of the biggest challenges you encountered while studying abroad, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, yes. I would say the biggest challenge I had to face was the academic challenge, because last semester was my first time studying entirely in English, because actually in Italy I studied in Italian. So it was my first time studying in English, and so everything was new for me. And also something else that was new was the school system, because the American school system is completely different from the Italian one, and I would say the European in general. For example, it was my first time sitting in a class with few students, or was my first time doing assignments, and actually was also my first time being engaged and in class. And so I had to actually participate in class, and these are things that I don't usually do in Italy, because classes are huge. There are at least 100 or 200 of people, so we don't get the chance to participate a lot. And so all these experience, it was all new for me. And I would say that I overcame this challenge thanks to my classmates and my professors and teachers. And they had always been friendly to me and available to help me with this actually language barrier, because at the end it was a language barrier, as you were saying before, and also like all the specific languages and terminology and vocabulary related to economics, as economic is my economic and business is my major. So all the specific words and vocabulary related to it, I didn't know it. So thanks to my teacher and classmates, I had the chance to live a great experience and overcame these challenges.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind before you go abroad, is that you might be dealing with a language barrier, but there's also going to most likely be a difference in the way that classes are run. So maybe you're used to big classes like Anna Chiara, and you're in, smaller classes. Maybe you're used to having faculty and professors where you can go sit and talk with them on a regular basis, but maybe you go to a location where that's not really common. So that's definitely a good thing to look into before you go, so you're prepared for how it will be different. And that's something that ISEP has, what we call country handbooks. You can find them on our website. And those, we can maybe even put a link into the chat. Those will break down the culture behind academics and how it might be different or similar to where you're from, just so you can kind of think about that and prepare for it before you go abroad. But that's great to hear that you had professors and your friends were able to kind of help you adapt and learn how to adjust to the different culture.
Yes, in addition to this, I would say that if you face any difficulty or problem or something like that, don't be afraid to ask for help to the people around you. starting from your classmates, your teachers, but also your college stuff, because everyone is there to help you. Trust me, because I believe this. So everyone is there to you actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice for sure, because yeah, I think this is a theme of this panel, is that people will help you if you ask. And I think that's a great part of going abroad, is just being able to have people support you, and that helps you get to know people and make friends and things like that. So that's a good segue into my next question, which is for Martina. And it's, how did you connect and make friends with local students while abroad?
Yes, sure. So I went about it 2 ways, and it's how most, I guess, would go about it. There were group chats that were for international students, so I reached out like that. And very quickly, like everyone, when you go on exchange, I think everyone who's on exchange wants to make friends. So that's really not an issue. It wasn't a barrier. I made friends with other internationals very quickly and formed a group. And we would eat out around campus together. So there was that way. And also at my university, IWA, there was a peace buddy system. So in the beginning of the semester, I was assigned another student who was from Korea, and they were there for me to answer my questions. We went out for lunches and dinners as well. So that's how I kind of made a friend from South Korea. There were also moments in class where I got to connect with other students and then continue talking afterwards, and even through group work. Went out for dinner as well with someone I was in a group assignment, and she was from China actually, studying in Korea. So yeah, I feel like there are many ways you could connect and make friends. You just have to push yourself a bit, especially when the culture is a bit different. But it's not, I was able to very easily. Yeah.
That's great to hear. And it looks like from the chat and some questions that we're getting, I think a concern is like how everyone has navigated your identity while abroad. So I know, for example, when I went abroad, a lot of times the first thing that people say is, "Oh, you're American. Tell me about America." And it's like all of a sudden you're responsible for your home country, and like kind of talking about that as like an expert on your country, or maybe it's your another identity is something that you get a lot of questions about, or things like that. Does anyone have an experience they would like to share about how you navigated your personal identity while you were abroad?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So my background is my parents are from India, but I obviously consider myself an American. And so when I went to Estonia, where everybody is blonde hair, blue eyes, not really diverse in skin tone and stuff, it was quite interesting because I also had this concern of like I don't want to experience feeling like an outsider. Especially in a country that I didn't really know much about. However, I've received nothing but warmth from people. I mean, this might be a little interesting to say, but I think I've experienced more negative things in the US than I did abroad, because people look at me and they're like, oh, you're American. Like they don't really, I guess, necessarily see the color of my skin and make assumptions off of that. It's more just like, wow, like what's an American doing all the way over here kind of a thing. So it was really relieving, I think. And also like when you are with international students in a different country, like naturally, I think everybody's just open-minded about like, okay, yeah, we are going to see people from different minorities and different backgrounds and stuff like that because we are part of like an exchange program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It can be sometimes feel like something that you might think will be challenging going into it is actually easier because you're with other students from around the world and you're kind of all experiencing the same, like, okay, we're traveling together, we're all kind of representing all these different countries, which might be different, like you said, than faith, where you're not seen as potentially like always just the American when you're in America because you're around all these other Americans. So that can sometimes be refreshing, like you said. So it is interesting how that, different experiences are going to impact you differently depending on where you go. It might be very similar than your home country, but it might be really different. So thanks for sharing that. That's a really interesting perspective. Anybody else want to share anything on that topic? All right, it looks like we have another question from the Q&A that I want to get to really quick. Would any of our panelists like to answer, what advice would you give to an applicant that is nervous to go abroad by themselves for the very first time in their lives? And is there anything you would have liked to have known before going abroad? And there's another part of it, how did you deal with the cost of studying abroad? But I think I just want to keep it to that first two areas and get someone's perspective, at least one of our panelists, to speak to. Were any of you first-time travelers or were any of you also nervous about going abroad? And what do you wish you would have known?
I can answer for that. For me, it was the first time going that far away from home, especially by myself. I was very nervous at first. I'm especially like right before the months leading up to your exchange, you're busy constantly, like getting your visa arranged and health insurance, and it's mostly excitement. And then the moment comes that you have to go, and I was really nervous. But I gotta say, it will. I don't know how to say that. It will happen. Like you will arrive in a city, you will meet people, it will just all flow. Like there's really not that much to worry about. And you have your phone. If you miss someone from back home, it's so easy to get back in contact. But for me, I didn't even really need that. Like you meet so many people, and especially like I lived in a house with a lot of international students. Everyone is going through the same thing, and everyone just wants to have a good time. And it's scary, of course, at first, but I think someone else also said, like, there's so many people who can help you if you need anything. Yeah, and the tip, just save a lot of money beforehand. You will need it. That's for sure.
Thanks, Robin. Anybody else have anything you want to share on that topic? All right, well, my next question is actually for Robin, so if you want to stay unmuted. Reflecting back on your time abroad, how has it impacted your worldview and who you are today?
I've definitely changed a lot. Like I'm from the Netherlands, it's pretty small. I'm also from a pretty small city. So I was always surrounded by the same people. So I was pushed outside my comfort zone the second I left this country. One thing, like I changed so much, like before leaving, one very stupid example maybe, I hated working out and sports. Like I did not like it. And now I go like 4 times a week, just because you are in such a different environment with so many different people who also like doing different things. So you easily like go with them to try different things, because you kind of have to. And it's also one of the nicest things about this experience. So you can just like completely develop yourself in a different way. Like you can figure out new things you like to do. For me, it was also like I got more relaxed being away from the things I'm used to. And you just, your whole worldview changes because you meet so many different people from different countries, not just the country you're going to. So I definitely miss being there, and you just meet an entire new, someone else also said it, like the people there, they are really like my family now. And that's also a part of my identity now, all those people.
That's such a lovely response, Robin. Thank you for sharing that. And I have the exact same question for John. Reflecting back on your time abroad, how has it impacted your worldview and who you are today?
Okay, so it is a difficult and an easy question. Easy answer, it impacted in a very positive way. It really changed. My true self came out, I can say, because I was there living by my own for 1 year for the first time in my life, in a country that I've never been before. So it was truly a personal, characteristically, I developed a lot. Sorry, I'm a bit excited, so I confused some words. A different answer might be I actually try to bring a lot of stuff from what I learned and try to make shape my life with it. So right now I am an official distributor of a Japanese fashion brand in Turkey. So actually I was there meeting people, and from them I'm hearing new brands, new opportunities. And I just wanted to give a shot, and now everything goes well. Another story might be when I was in Japan, I met a huge group CEO in Japan, and that company had a branch in Turkey as well. And I used that network to do an internship in Turkey in that same branch, Japanese company. And somehow, with the network developing, I shaped my business and career life as well.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's something to think about for after your study abroad experiences is how you can use that experience either to develop your professional network or put it on your resume or CV and talk about how the skills that you gained from study abroad are applicable to future careers and jobs. So great point. And then I have the exact same question for Faith as well. Faith, reflecting back on your time abroad, how has it impacted your worldview and who you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So I have two answers. One's kind of like a serious answer, and one's just kind of like just a small little thing. But for the serious answer, I think it just showed me that I'm capable of going far away from home and living on my own for, like a very long time. And it's also taught me to slow down and appreciate life, because here in the States, when I'm like at university, I'm so busy. I'm in like 3 different campus organizations. I'm taking a full class load, and I'm just always constantly doing something. Versus in Estonia, I had one class, one day, once a week, and things just slowed down tremendously. And so it was really nice, and it just kind of put into perspective that like a work-life balance is attainable. It's just trying to find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So that was really eye-opening, and something that when I told my European friends, are like, what? Americans don't take a break? What is this? Type of thing. And so it led to like a lot of really interesting discussions and stuff. And then on like another sillier note, I guess you could say, is we don't have tea kettles or electric kettles in the States. Like we don't really necessarily use it. And over there in Europe, it's pretty big, like for tea and stuff like that, and coffee. And so my flatmates were German, and we would like once a day just meet up in the kitchen for tea time, and it just got to become a habit. So I think one of the first things I did when I came back to the States was ran to Target and bought a kettle. So like it's just these small little things that change you, that you don't even realize until you sit back and reflect, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, I think it's a great learning experience for you to learn about yourself. Like you might learn, oh, I'm a tea person, and when you normally drink coffee, or you might learn, that you are more confident than you thought you were, or that you can do things that you never thought you would do. So I think that's a great point. So that was all the prepared questions I had, but I did want to just kind of, for the group, ask you all, what is your biggest tip for students who are either just considering studying abroad, or maybe they're already, have submitted their applications and they know where they're going to go, or things like that? What would be your biggest tip that comes to mind that you think really would help these students be successful in their study abroad programs?
I can go first if you want, guys. I would say just live this experience to the fullest, because it's just one life experience. So just don't be afraid to be involved, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, for example, with the language, or just like be involved on the campus if you are living in a college, and try to make as many friends as you can, and just live the experience, connect with local and learn about the culture, and try to keep in touch with these people, and just live this experience to the fullest, because it will literally change your life. That's my advice.
Yeah, and also advice, try to see as much of the country as you can. Like we tried, especially in the beginning before school started, but also afterwards, we tried to do a trip or a road trip or just a day trip at least once a week, because yeah, you just want to see as much as possible, and you don't want to go back home with any regrets, like, oh, I should have went there, because that's the time to do all of that. And also, like I said before, make sure to save as much money as you can. Like maybe, I mean, I saved a lot, and you really need it, especially if you want to see that many things. But just, yeah, beforehand, try to not do unnecessary things or buy unnecessary things, because you will definitely want to spend your money during this period to do as much as possible.
To add to Robin's tip, to be able to explore the country you're in as much as possible, which you definitely should, make sure to cut off any commitments you have from home. I was naive, thinking I could continue certain jobs or continue being part of certain associations in my home university when I was on exchange. And then when I was on exchange, I kind of realized, like, I'm like in a different country. Like, I should be making the most of my time here, not still being involved with things back home. So even if you want to be a multitasker and overachiever and try juggle these things, it's really is not to your benefit when you're on exchange. So really close like one chapter and go on your exchange, and then continue stuff when you get back home. But when you're on your exchange, just focus on being in that country and absorbing as much as you can from there. Yeah.
I would say, depending on where you go, say yes to everything. Even if it's something that seems ridiculous, just say yes, because I think, one, the time goes by so fast that I just don't, want to come back and be like, man, I really wish I had done X, Y, or Z. Just go for it. And the second tip I would say, again, depending where you are, is don't be afraid to do things by yourself. Like, yes, it's nice to go with friends and make memories that way, but I think some of my favorite experiences, I've actually like wandered off by myself and got to explore the city and stuff like that, or eat at a restaurant that I've always wanted to go to, by myself. And it sounds scary and it sounds odd, but those would be, I think, my two tips: is just say yes and don't be afraid to do things on your own.
I was waiting for the ladies to finish. So I would say learn the language, because that's the true way to understand the culture and the people. And then be active, go out, just get out of your comfort zone, because even though you go for one semester or a whole year, it will be very short. When it finished, you will understand it was such a short period that you should enjoy at max.
Soak it up while you can. Yeah. say yes to things, go outside your comfort zone. All of that is such great advice. Thank you to all of our panelists. You have been so wonderful today. I really appreciate all of your great stories and advice. It's been really fun hearing from you. And I know it's been helpful to our attendees for sure. So I'm going to move on because we are out of time for more questions, but we do have a little bit more information for you that I'm going to pass it over to Cynthia to share.
Yes, thank you all again for sharing your stories and perspectives. So for the participants of this panel today, if you have any questions about specific programs or what you may need to prepare for an application, I really encourage you to connect with our ISEP Student Services Officers. So Grace will be our Student Services Officer for Northern and Central Europe. So if you are interested in applying to any program within that region, Grace would be your best point of contact. And her email is down below. Rachel Brown is our Student Services Officer for programs in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. So for example, if you're interested in Iwa Women's University, I would definitely recommend contacting Rachel if you have specific questions. Kira will be our Student Services Officer for the Americas and Southern Europe. Gretchen is our officer for the United States. So for any students interested in universities within the US, she is your contact. And finally, Joe will be our Student Services Officer for the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Oceania. So again, if you're interested, just please contact them and they will provide you with any information you may need. So we do have some upcoming events that we would like you to be aware of. And if you are interested, I highly recommend writing these dates down. So we do have a second alumni experience panel this afternoon at 4. And our second event that we're looking forward to is our application workshop. So that will be Thursday, February 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this workshop will be a great opportunity for anyone interested in applying to one of our programs. And in this workshop, you'll be able to speak with our student services officers and ask them questions about your application, what goes into that, making it a competitive application. There are different parts to that, and they will be your best resource for answering questions.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming and attending this alumni experience panel. And thank you so much to our panelists. Truly, that was a wonderful panel experience, and your perspectives have been so interesting, and we really, really appreciate you sharing. So thanks again, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.